with the plant medicine path. And today we have Faisal. And I met Faisal maybe a few weeks ago from a good friend of mine, Angel, with Jungle Medicine Retreats down in Costa Rica. And me and Faisal have been talking the last couple weeks. And you know what? We've decided to talk a little bit about men and their trauma. Um, but first of all, let's go ahead and introduce Faisal and we'll share about a little bit what he's all about and what brought him to this path. Hey, Faisal, how are you?
Good. How are you? How are you? Thank you, Mark.
Good.
This is amazing work you're doing. First of all, thank you for doing this, and
Thank you.
especially this topic is very close to my heart, dear to my heart, and this is
Right.
really important. I mean, speaking man to man, uh,
Hmm.
I know a bit about your story, and I believe I'm now working with our traumas and shame and guilt over time as men. I mean, this is amazing space we are in, and where we can help other men
Hmm.
to deal with what they are going through or what they are running away from.
Hmm.
So this has my path of working with my own dark side, working with all the belief systems,
Yeah.
society my parents gave me, like how
Hmm. Yeah.
that took a while, and now I'm lucky enough to and blessed enough to help other men on this path, and especially through your
Right.
podcast. Uh,
Yeah. And through our platform also. And what for me, I think trauma was something I never, I know didn't even understand what trauma was. I always just hid my childhood traumas underneath me. I just ran away from them and I started using a lot of substances, but I was always kind of making myself look like I was doing the right thing, but we were always hiding and running away. And, that really damaged my growth because I think we stayed stuck and we were never able to express our feelings. And I think that's what happens to men. We don't express our feelings. And I think we're afraid to. And when we do, we become fearful. And then, we get in this unhumbled spot like, why am I going through this? So how do you feel?
well, unfortunately, this is how we are brought up. This is what society expects.
Hmm.
Like, men are supposed to be bulletproof from the
Yeah.
feelings and emotions. This is what we have been taught since we are babies. And but it doesn't mean we don't have trauma, we don't have suffering.
Right.
Each one of us, we have something, but we
Hmm.
have been told to keep it down, put it under the rug, shove it under the rug, because strong, and we need to put the face that nothing is happening. But inside, deep
Hmm.
down, from my own experience and working with a lot of men over the years in our center, I have seen outside men, they strong and tough, but it's inside have scars. They are wounded
Hmm.
and they are wanting to be heard, or they want to share their, because this is how they have been trained, that they're not supposed to share their feelings and emotions. And that hurts me, you know, especially when I see a client, first half an hour or so with one-on-one coaching,
Yeah.
they're just beating around the bush. And it's all subconsciously happening. It's not like they want to do it. They're here
Right.
to get help, but they don't know how to express it. And
Hmm.
that is hard to see.
It is. It really is. Because I think we, like as men, and I think we had this conversation the other day. We talk so superficial. Only the superficial things that are around us, sports, politics, things that really don't matter, and we don't really get to the deep truth of, how me and you can talk, or me and Carlos, or me and some other people in this community. And I think when we snap, I think it all becomes from lineage too, of how we are raised. Lineage has a lot to do with and traumas and our parents' traumas. And, you know, for me, I think everything that is incorporated into our structure of our being is incorporated through our lineages of our parents. And I don't think we could ever doubt that. Right or wrong, I don't think we can ever blame our parents because that lineage came from them and them. So I think it's time we stop that. For me, I think it's time we stop that. And I think where I had my most difficult part was accepting that I was not a good father, you know. And when I accepted that I wasn't a great father, but that's how I was taught. But now I can look back and could say, you know what? I wasn't a good father, but now look where I am today. And, you know, I guess we got to just keep moving forward.
Totally, totally. I believe on this path of spirituality and healing, acceptance is the biggest thing. The
Hmm.
first step is to recognize is going on with me. What am I doing wrong? You know,
Hmm.
that is the first step. And once we recognize our faults, then the healing begins. Just like what you were mentioning, that you realize you were not a good father, but
Hmm.
it does not mean you will never be a good father. So
Right.
luckily you recognize, you saw it, because that is the most difficult thing, especially for a man to recognize that there is something wrong with them or what they're doing. There is something
Hmm.
wrong with that. It's really, really tough because this is how we have been trained as a man that no, no, I know everything and I'm strong and I cannot do anything wrong. But kudos to you that you realize that, okay, there is something happening which is not right, especially when it comes to relationship with my children.
Hmm.
Once we recognize, then we can change. Then we're not
Right.
hiding from it. So that is fantastic. That is the first step.
So give me some advice. Would you suggest to men what you do to get them to understand that it's okay to express their feelings?
Well, here's the thing. There are only two ways. If a man has been running away from their feeling, from his feelings, from the hurt, shame, and guilt, for let's say decades, most of us we do,
Right.
and they have tried each and everything available to them, addictions or other means, sports, and it is not helping them to be happy from inside,
Hmm.
to have joy, then it else need to be done. And usually it is something totally opposite you need to do to achieve that goal. So for example, if I have been addicted for 30 years, I have tried all the drugs, be happy and joyful, but I'm not
Right.
reaching there. It means those things are not working for me. It means there is something totally different. I need to step outside the box and try that thing.
Hmm.
Is again connecting with my trauma and suffering and wound and expressing that. I know it is very hard. I have gone through it. You have gone through it. But that is the only way for men.
The only.
If we want to have happiness and joy in our lives, we need to stop running after every silver bullet and thinking that that might give me some peace and harmony. It won't.
Yes.
The
It
only
won't.
way is the only way is to get to the source, get to the bottom. It will
Hmm.
hurt, you will cry, you will become vulnerable, which is actually very powerful. But
Very
I
powerful.
can tell you from my own experience and watching many clients, as soon as you take that first step, as soon as you become vulnerable, and even if you just share just a little emotions with
Right.
someone,
Hmm.
it changes everything.
Absolutely.
It changes everything,
Hmm.
you know? And that becomes like an addiction. This is another addiction now. Like now I
Yes.
want to share what's inside, and
Yes.
that really, I like this addiction. That
Me
brings
too.
happiness and joy.
Hmm. And, you know, I think that can lead us into the great conversation of why I think we created this space in the first place, is because I could never get there through talk therapy, through antidepressants, through medication. For 40 years, I was stuck. And you know what got me there? psychedelics. And I was petrified of psychedelics 3 years ago. Absolutely petrified because everything I heard. But you know what? It was the only thing that broke that. I say it's a plastic over my mind that wouldn't let me generate new thoughts, that I was just stuck in that everyday loop of that default mode system. I was just doing the same thing every day, hoping for a new outcome. And there was never a new outcome. It was always life is teaching me the same lesson because I'm not learning that lesson. And psychedelics broke me, at least gave me that freedom to start thinking a little more clearer.
Hmm. That's a great point. The way I explain is psychedelics, if used with
Hmm.
proper intention, they are the biggest teachers and they are the biggest doctors.
Yes, they
And
are.
you mentioned you tried everything out there to fulfill your dreams or be happy. So what happens is without if you want to take a step outside of your norm, ego kicks in because ego does not
It really doesn't.
so ego starts telling your mind, don't take this step. We're not familiar with this. If you're going to therapy or you're talking to a new guru or coach, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what they're going to teach us. So let's not go there. It is dark. I'm not happy with it because ego's number one job is to keep us safe.
Right.
And how it keeps us safe is keep us inside our belief system, whatever we are taught, whatever is safe, even though it might be shitty. We might be
Right.
in a shitty relationship, but ego says, no, no, this is good. I don't want to leave because I don't know what's out there. I don't know if I get into another relationship, it might be bad. But this is good. I have been here for 20, 30 years with this relationship, even though I'm hurting inside, but I'm familiar with this. So let's stay here. So every time we try to take a step, ego pulls us back. But here's the good thing about psychedelics is if we use them properly, for me, psychedelics, they go in your kind of tell the ego, hey, take a smoke break. So ego is put on side for a while. I mean, you don't get rid of ego. You will never get rid of ego. It is part of
Absolutely.
us. So
Hmm.
ego is put on side, ego is chilling on the side, and then psychedelics can go in, create new neural pathways, create new ways of thinking with our mind and brain, and it gives step outside,
Yeah.
unknown. And we know as
Hmm.
soon as we jump, like there are more possibilities, there are new things we can see, and our perceptions change, and psychedelics help us. And by the time ego comes back, we have already seen and learned new things which we cannot forget now.
Right. You're so true. And that analogy was so great because over time, our body, our mind thoughts transform into our body, and then they stick there. They stick and they hold. And we kind of forget because they'd be embedded into places in our body. And I really also truly believe that psychedelics, especially ayahuasca, has a way to get into those core roots and heal them through a purge process. Now, I'm no doctor or scientist, but that's what's happened in more of my cases. That that purge happens, you're cleaning those areas out again. Your mind is fresh, your body's fresh, new information is fresh. We can start fresh. And yes, it's unknown territory, and unknown is scary, but unknown is where you create.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every time I step into a ceremony, and the good thing about ayahuasca is every ceremony is different. It doesn't matter if you do 10 or 1,000. Every time it will open up a new door. It's like Neo in the Matrix movie, right? It goes in, and there are different doors. Every time he opens a door, he steps into something different and learns something new. So same thing with ayahuasca, like mind is endless. Like there's so many things we can do, and this lifetime is not enough to learn everything.
Mhm. Well, because we come back and we come back and we come back until we kind of learn something. And I truly believe we come back until we kind of learn that lesson, because I truly believe that we don't want to be stuck in this dimension forever. You know, we're all molecules, we're all atoms, and we all are energy. And when we do go into that ground, we are going somewhere, correct? So come back or go back or whatever we do. Um, we have to be happy here. And that was really difficult for me for a long time. So let's talk a little bit about entering this path and doing your first psychedelic experience and what you're going to expect on something like this as a man coming there with a lot of trauma, because I feel trauma is really deep rooted from childhood, and then we sit on that. So how do you approach that in one of your ceremonies?
Well, good thing is my personal plan started um, with intention of healing myself. That was my intention in my very first ayahuasca ceremony. I had never heard about this medicine. I actually wanted to learn telepathy. Since I was a child, I was into esoteric stuff and I was into Sufism and I wanted to learn new things, hypnotherapy and all those things. And I was, I believe, 37-year-old sitting one day in front of my computer and I'm like, I need to learn telepathy. This is something cool. So I called one of my friends and she's into the spiritual community. I'm like, hey, do you know someone who is doing a telepathy course or a workshop I can do? She said, I don't know about telepathy, but have you ever done ayahuasca? And I'm like, Aya, who? Like, what is that thing? So she's like, okay, don't worry. She sent me the spellings. I didn't even know how to spell it.
Right.
So there I go in Google, and you know what happens in the rabbit hole of ayahuasca. And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap, this is it. This is what I was expecting to do. So she got me connected with someone, and I went into my first ayahuasca. And the intention was at that time to connect that 5-year-old Faisal who got raped when he was in school one day by 3 older boys. So that was my intention because I knew most of my trauma was coming from there.
Hmm.
So I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to relive the scene, make peace with that wound.
Hmm.
So I went in, took the medicine, and after half an hour or so, Faisal showed up. If uh, if any of listeners here who have not done this medicine before, the medicine takes you out of this body dimensions where everything is happening at the same time, your past lives, your future lives, and your many other lives, and your life from this life, your childhood, everything will be coming at you in 3D, 4D, 5D, and you can understand each and everything without even saying a word. So a 5-year-old Faisal shows up and he's like, okay, what you want to do? I'm like, can you please take me to that scene of this incident? He was kind of surprised. He was like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I want to go there. He said again, are you sure? I'm like, yes. So next thing I know, he grabbed my hand and we jumped into what looked like a water park ride, one of those round tubes. You go on the top and it's filled with water and you go down. But instead of water, it was filled with little plastic colorful balls where kids play, the ball pit.
Yeah.
And we jumped into that and I'm screaming and shouting, wow, beautiful, this is amazing. We're going up and down, and I'm thinking now we're going to fall into a little pond of water. This is usually how these rides end. But what happened is we fell into what seemed like a dungeon, very dark, and I'm up to here in sludge, very smooth. And I'm like, asked 5-year-old Faisal, I'm like, hey, what is this? What happened? And he looked at me and he said, "You asked me to take you to that incident. You wanted to feel how I felt. This is how I felt.
Hmm.
This is how this is how smelly I felt. This is how terrified I felt." And man, that was it. I started crying. I grabbed him. I said, "Listen, Faisal, that was it. I am strong now. We are strong now. We are grown up. I will protect you. Nobody will ever touch you. Nobody will ever say anything to you." And that was the day I made connection with my inner child. And inner child became my main work because I know inner child, working with inner child, has the actual healing, the true healing comes from there. And I started working with plant medicine and with my inner child. I developed my own course. It's a 7-day retreat where I combine psychology, shamanism, and plant medicine. And over years, I have been blessed to help many, many adults, men, especially veterans, working with a lot of veterans. And as we know, veterans, they have a lot of deep trauma from
Hmm.
childhood or from battlefields.
Right.
Um, but this type of work, man, that changes everything. Especially when we're talking about armed forces, most of them, they have been trained in a way that they have been disconnected from their inner child.
Right.
They have been turned into almost like robots,
Yep.
following the orders. It doesn't matter if inside, deep down inside, they know that if I follow this order, this is against my values. This is not the right thing to do.
Right.
But they have to follow those things. And those things, they take them further away from their child, little child,
Yep.
and they make them into these tough machines. But when they come back, they're not tough anymore because
Right.
now all those scars, all the decisions they made, all the things they saw in the start hunting you.
Hmm.
On top of that, they're not connected with themselves anymore
Hmm.
because they have been turned into robots a long time ago.
Yeah.
They are they are turned away from their emotions and their feelings. So it's really hard for them to
Yeah.
come back to themselves. But this work, inner child work, and shamanism and plant medicine, it changes lives. First night, it changes everything. So
Right.
that is how this became my main thing. You know, I have been a serial entrepreneur. I was into business since I was a teen. But then
Right.
10, 11 years ago, that changed. I'm like, this is something I really want to do because it helped me. And I can see this can help a lot of men and women out there. And
Hmm.
that became my passion and that became my vision. And this is how we came from Canada to Costa Rica and built this center so more people can come in and they can get started on their healing path.
Right.
And every time, I'm working with a client, I always share. A lot of people ask me, why do you do this? You know, because it's not an easy job. It's tough work. There's a lot of sacrifice. And I always say, I help people because in reality, there is there's a benefit for me. Connect with their inner child or connect with their fear, trauma, shame, or suffering, that actually heals my little inner child too. That actually
Hmm.
heals that 5-year-old Faisal who is still living with me. That,
Hmm.
that gives him power, that empowers him that yes, nobody anymore.
Right.
I am someone and I am confident. I can rescue people. I can help people. So that gives him purpose. That gives me purpose. That makes our vision and purpose even stronger. So it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way. When I help people, they're actually helping me. So that gets me going or keeps me going.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely why I do what I do, because I feel there was never anything out there that made me whole again. This actually made me whole again. And I'm getting up there, 50 years old. I want to spread this message. I mean, this is a good way to live. It really is a good way to live, and I think you really touched on a really deep topic. First of all, PTSD with veterans. That could we could talk about that topic for hours, because what our government and what our military does to these men and just throws them to the curb once they get out is pretty damaging, to the family, not only to them but to the family members and to outside people. It's just really, it's like you said, they're robots. But then when we go to the next thing is, you have to you have to go and make peace with that inner child, and it is some painful work, but it's the only way to get there. And
Well, what I say is it is painful,
right.
probably most painful,
Hmm.
but the most rewarding work anyone can do.
Absolutely, man.
Bar none. I mean, this is the best thing. Imagine if you could connect with your little one inside. Because one of my great mentors told me when I was doing the inner child work with him one on one, he said, Faisal, there is someone who has the keys to your happiness. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Tell me, who is that? He said, he started smiling. He said, no, you don't have to go too far and you don't have to pay for that either. And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, that is even better. Tell me, who is it? Where is it? And he said, that person is inside you.
Right.
Once you connect with that little vessel, he will he came to do in this life. What was his purpose? What made him happy? Because if you remember childhood, when someone is small, on their mind, the only thing on their mind is playing around, making connections with other kids, no fear, jumping and breaking bones is not a problem, they're not thinking about politics, money, house, sex.
Hmm.
All those things are not there. They are pure soul, which came with a mission.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, over time, with society, with parents, and with the traumas, that child loses that connection with the actual purpose and what made them happy. Maybe that child wanted to become an artist, but because parents or society said, no, no, you need to become a doctor or engineer, you need to make money, you need to have a civil job, government job, otherwise painting is not going to pay you anything. So over time, we follow somebody else's dream and we
Hmm.
become somebody else. And then 60-year-old doctor is sitting one day and is like, shit, man, I have been a doctor for 30, 40 years, but I don't like it.
Hmm.
And then they start going back, trying to connect with the inner child who wanted to be a painter. The paint and brush, and that just brings them the happiness, and they
Right.
are the most happiest in their lives. So, I mean, this work is crazy, it is hard, but this is the best thing anyone can do for themselves.
Yeah, it's gratifying. It's just gratifying at the end of the day. I mean, we're always searching, and if you're stuck and you don't know any way out, and you've been trying everything, these medicines will
Mhm.
help. There's no doubt about it.
Totally.
These medicines will help. So we're going to continue this men and trauma in the next couple of weeks, but let's talk about a little bit about your retreat down there, how you started your retreat, and what you do down there, Fessel. Why don't we do that?
Sure, real quick.
Sure.
Actually, we never had an idea of building a center.
Hmm.
We have been living in Canada for 23 years. My daughters and my wife, they are still there, so I go back and forth. So about 4 years ago, we came for a vacation, 1 week long vacation to meet our friends here, and we stayed with them, our longtime friends from Canada who moved here about 6 years ago. So we were staying there, and my friend told me, hey, Faisal, when you come here, you're going to feel the energy because we are in blue zone. And I'm like, I don't know, we'll see. And I came here next day, second day we went to the beach and I'm standing on the beach and I started feeling this energy. I'm like, wow, what is going on here? Like I could actually feel the energy. So then I realized this land is it has some special energy going on in here. Still no idea of buying land. Something happened, universe works in mysterious ways. Second last day, we shook hands with a man who had this land, 11 acres, and it was just a mountain, a jungle. There was nothing there. We go back home after a couple days, and then my wife and I were sitting, we're like, shit, what did we do? We just bought this land. What are we gonna do? We're like, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll see. And then I go to Peru for about a month. Um, I'm sitting with the medicine with my master, and in the ceremony, I'm crying and I'm asking the spirits of the medicine. I and what you. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm a businessman. I have built different businesses, but we have never done a center. I'm scared. I don't know. What do we do? So both the spirits came in and they were like, listen, your job is to fulfill your higher self vessel's dream and purpose. Okay, what is that? Like your higher self's purpose is to bring people to the center you're going to build and get them on the healing path. I'm like, okay, sounds good. But what about me, this physical vessel? What is his job? They're like, okay, listen, your physical vessel, he's going to utilize all these skills he has to build the businesses or physical structures. And don't worry about how people are going to come, where the money is going to come from. Leave that to us. We have your back. And that changed everything. From then on, I came back to Costa Rica and we started I was involved. We picked up machetes and we started cleaning the jungle. This is how we started. And slowly we started building. And in 10 months, actually, we finished Malokas, cabinas, restaurant building, everything. So we have a full-fledged working center where we can host up to 25 people can stay here. Commercial kitchen, beautiful Maloka on top of the mountain, uh, one of the best Malokas, uh, acknowledged by a lot of shamans who came here and did. So we're blessed to have that. And we offer different retreats, especially the one I mentioned, the Arbol 7-day retreat with inner child work and plant medicine. And then we do cacao. We do many different plant medicine ceremonies, yoga, massage, all types of things here. And our goal and vision has to be stay as a family, stay humble, stay, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
way we can help people 110%. Instead of just going crazy and diluting the experience,
Mm-hmm.
keep it
Mm-hmm.
small groups. I specialize on one type of
Mm-hmm.
situation. So some people will come, just one person, and the whole center and myself are there for them for 7 days. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't do that because that's not very cost effective. But for me, that's not the big thing. I mean, everybody needs to make money. For me, the biggest thing is the healing. And in one-on-one type of situations, that's the biggest healing you can have for someone. And then we
Absolutely.
stay up to 10 people group. We keep it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have been doing here, and is to keep the land as close to as close as possible to what we initially. So it's like semi-jungle. We have been planting even more trees, more medicinal plants. So we're also working on that. So when you come here, and you will one day, you'll
Oh, I
see
will.
jungle.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole
Yeah,
idea.
I
And
saw some. I seen some beautiful pictures of your place. Your Maloka is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, probably one of the nicest Malokas I've seen.
Thank
Um,
you.
and Mo, you hit on a couple other great topics, Vessel. You're just a man of great knowledge. These ceremony spots, and a lot of people like to pack these people in and serve them medicine, and this is not a good thing. You know, I experienced places like this on my path. In the beginning, it was helpful because I met communities, I met people. But I think when you deep down harder and more into yourself, these smaller 15, 12, 15 ceremonies, that energy, and people, we talk about energy a lot in this community, that energy can get real thick when it's so many people. And, you're there for yourself. And the other people's energies, don't get me wrong, they're good. They do benefit you. But a lot of these centers are just way thinking about the money before they're thinking about anything else. And then you also hit on a couple other things. Besides these plant medicines, we have these other modalities, like you mentioned, yoga, meditation, breath work. We're all not going to be inclined to pick some of these up. We're all not going to like some of these, but every one of these modalities connect us to one thing, and that's breath. Breath, I think, is what we're trying to get after. I feel that's our need. That's what we need to start getting out, because our Western world doesn't know how to fucking breathe. We don't breathe, okay? We don't breathe from the diaphragm. We don't breathe correctly. And all those different modalities teach you how to breathe. We need to breathe.
That I love that. That is my pet peeve, breathing. So in
Mm-hmm,
my work, it's not just about doing the ceremony, ayahuasca or wachuma. If you, for example, if you choose to work with me, we will start few weeks before you even come to Costa Rica. We start online. So I prepare people for the ceremonies. A lot of people don't do that. And then if you're not prepared and you step into the ceremony, you can it can go either way. You can
mm-hmm,
get really scared because you're not used to it. So in my prep, the biggest thing I focus upon is breathing.
mm-hmm.
Because in the ceremony, from your experience, you'll probably remember the only thing you remember in ceremony when you're going through some rough time or tough time is breathing. That's the only thing you can do. You cannot move. So if
Yeah,
you do not know how to breathe deeply, life becomes even tougher. If you're shallow breathing, you get into panic mode. So my biggest thing is I do a lot of yogic breathing. I teach people how to do breathing from the diaphragm. These techniques are like centuries old. From there, from the basics, by the time you get into the ceremony, you know how to deep breathe. You are already connected with your trauma. We work in those weeks on your trauma first. I want to know why you want to step into the Maloka. What is the reason? What is the root? Because I know there's some trauma. That is why you want to do the medicine work. Medicine called you, even
right,
though ego might say, "Oh no, no, I'm good. I'm good. Everything is yeah. If everything is good, then why you're not happy?" So we
right.
work on that. So once you get into the ceremony, because as you know, you take the cup, especially ayahuasca, it will open the can of worms. And if you're not prepared to see that trauma, you can get overwhelmed in a jiffy. So we do a lot of breathing, and then after that, you're not done with me. Same thing. We keep going, which is I'm really, really focused upon. For me, is only 20%.
Yeah,
80% is what you do after that. And a lot
absolutely.
of people miss that, and a lot of people don't offer that because that is
They
hard work.
Well, they missed that. I think because they missed that, and I think a lot of these retreats, man, we can go on forever with these subjects, but I think a lot of these retreats serve these people the medicines. They get off these medicines and they're going back to work that following Monday. That is just totally insanity. Insane. What are
Yes.
you doing? I mean, experience what you're experiencing. You're trying to change your life. Don't go back to your old life right away. Experience that. Integrate
Yeah,
it.
for totally, totally agree. For me, healing is not. weakened process. Healing takes long time, and for me, I also say it's lifetime process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you're on the healing path, it's like you're taking layers one by one. But every time you take one layer, you feel better, you become more joyful, happy, and you connect with your feelings. You're more open now. But it doesn't mean healing is done. I'm still healing myself after 11 years. Every
Yeah.
ceremony. I just did 2 ceremonies. I let go myself. Somebody else was facilitating. I got so much healing. For
Right.
me, every time I do a ceremony personally, I go deeper and wider into my wounds and traumas. It could be
Hmm.
from this life or from past lives. And I get a better perception of what's happening. And when I come out, not only it helped me in my healing, but now I can also share those angles and perception with the clients.
Yeah.
This is how it goes.
Yeah, because I think when you do that medicine a few times and you get used to what that feeling's going to be when you start taking the medicine, you learn how to work it a little better, you know?
Totally,
Not that you're
totally.
going to work it all the time because it's going to take over, but at least you can navigate a little bit better. You know, because I think when you start these journeys, that first time you ever sit with any of these medicines, that fear, I don't care who you are, that's coming out the roof. What is happening? I've never done this before. I've never experienced this. What is going on? That's why I think first night should be like you're
A bit.
purged, you're relaxed, you're okay,
Yeah,
this is what it was about. And then let's experience life.
totally, totally. You got it.
Mhm. So, my friend, great conversation. We'll definitely continue this, man. I love you a lot. So glad that Angel introduced us. I think we can continue this path. I think we have a lot of people to educate out there. Very knowledgeable man, and really happy to have you on today. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot from this.
Thank you very much, Mark. You're my soul brother. For past life, who knows?
Yeah,
And like we just scratched the surface. There's so much we can talk
so much.
about, like
Yeah.
trauma ingrained in men. Like this needs to be brought out. We need to teach people, especially men, how to be vulnerable, because
Mhm.
that is the biggest power you can ever have. If you see a man crying, I mean, that gives you the power. That is the biggest thing a man can do, let it out. And how we do that, we can talk about it in next session or
Let's
podcast.
do that. Let's do that.
And
For sure.
and thank you very much for putting this together, brother. I love you, man. This is great. And
Thank you.
I love that more and people are doing that now, especially for men. More and
Hmm.
more people are producing these kind of podcasts and coming out, which gives us people like me who are facilitating these uh, healing modalities for men. This gives us power and a hope to do more. You know, it gives us that energy. Okay, what we are doing is good and appreciated. So thank you very much for doing that. And if you are the listener or somebody who's watching, and if you have trauma, the biggest advice I can give you is find someone who you can talk to. Open up. Don't keep it inside. The more you keep it inside, it will become a cancer. It will eat you up. Talk to someone. And especially think about doing plant medicine work. This
Hmm.
is very, very healing work.
It is.
And
It is.
again, Mark, thank you very much for doing this, brother.
Thank
And
you. Talk
we'll,
to
we'll we'll
somebody.
see you again.
I think I will add to that. Talk to somebody, and I'll just say one thing: nothing outside of you can change you. Nothing. So we'll continue
That's
this
fantastic,
conversation, and we'll add a lot more. I think there's a lot of good work to be done here. I love you, brother, and we'll be talking soon.
brother. Thank you.